My name is Clara Towson, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
I am Francisca George, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Susan Leemans, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom. Yeah.
My name is Zainab Samas, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hey guys, my name is Sasha Vickery, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hi, my name is Lloyd Harris, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Jan Faria, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Yes.
Take one. Well done.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Paolini, and I'm a friend of the show.
Wow, Jasmine, you got it in one time.
Ready? Play.
Hey guys, so we meet here today to talk about the Next Gen Finals. You might remember me saying that probably with Vansh we were going to do a watch along today of the last match. However, then when we saw the schedule, we kind of realized that, well, a dead rubber, that's probably not the best commentary option. However, the dead rubber ended up being absolutely, wow, I almost said effing, but yeah, absolutely effing good. And I think what we're gonna do, as like kind of like as usual with these round robin formats, we're definitely gonna talk about every player, and we might actually work our way backwards. So let's start with that dead rubber that we've just watched, and Joao Fonseca eventually finishing the group unbeaten.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just tremendous effort from Fonseca to finish the group unbeaten. Just like the group that he was in, just beating both Feast and Mensik, and then also just the performance against Tien, where he won, 2 sets 4-0, 4-0 to right away to start. And I mean, Feast was a bit up and down in the opening match for sure, but Joao really stepped up when he needed to, and he won it pretty decisively in the fifth. But this match, I mean, the 5 tie breaks. That's only the second time in next gen history that's happened. I think the first one was 2022 with Seti against Stricker, right?
Yes, not a dead rubber. I checked. It was the second day.
Yeah, not a dead rubber. But this one, like, I mean, all 5 tiebreaks were just brilliant. And the way that Mensik responded with those 2 match points, especially before the tiebreak, I mean, just top drawer stuff really from him. Backhand down the line with a forehand drop shot winner, and then just another spectacular forehand to push it in the tiebreak. And I didn't think he did much wrong in the tiebreak. Fonseca just came up with the goods at the very end, a really nice volley to finish it on match point. And yeah, just an exclamation point where he's one of my biggest winners of this week, because certainly I think he has the most to gain out of this cohort. I mean, there's definitely Mickelson as well, who also finished 3-0, but of course he had that Jerry Shang retirement, so it was kind of 2 completed matches and then one compromised Jerry. But I think for Fonseca, there's a lot of high hopes coming into this tournament. That he's an 18-year-old, he's the youngest. Of course, we've had Sinner, who won this tournament in 2019 as an 18-year-old, and Alcaraz in 2021 as an 18-year-old as well. So if Fonseca were to join that company, I mean, certainly the hype around him would just build a ton, and it could be a really good momentum boost given that the season is just right around the corner, and the timing could not be better, I think, for him.
Yeah, today I posted these kind of performance reviews of how everybody did in the group stage. So basically, I will also be asking Vansh whether he agrees with my ratings. The scale that I used, which I came up with today, is basically like pluses and minuses. So the best positive rating is 3 pluses. There's also 2 pluses, 1 pluses, 3 minus, 2 minus, 3 minuses, 2 minuses, 1 minus. And also, if there was a player that I wanted to kind of give this to, I could also give that undecided rating, kind of like in the middle. So, I mean, for Fonseca, for this group stage, I gave him a 3 pluses. Is that fine with you?
Oh, 100%. I think I cannot disagree, really. Like, full marks. Just the situation, the way he bounced back, won the 5 setters against the 2 toughest players in the group, has to be A+.
Yeah, and I was even ignoring the dead rubber basically, but the fact that he still won this is also magnificent. And yeah, I think some people will come in, and probably not Elena and Jean I see in the chat. Hello to you guys, but there will be some people who will say, okay, 5 tie breaks, there were no breaks until the 5th set. Where's the fun in that? It's just serve botting. But the shot making was astonishing throughout. There's some ridiculous Fonseca shots from there. The match point saves that Mensik had, also very important. And yes, I mean, Joao just had the best group stage that you possibly could have imagined for him. Where the last 3 sets against Arthur feels a little weird, sure, but he also had to adapt to that. Then, as you mentioned, he kind of blitzed Lerner Tien, which another player, like Fonseca, like Mensik, players who just have so much more experience, so much more, well, I don't know if skill for now, but like just generally, have been on the tour for a while longer. They are unable to tackle him, and yet Fonseca does that to him in the first 2 sets. And then even today, he just keeps fighting. 2.5 hours, no serve botting. Well, kind of from Mensik, but I agree that it was more great.
22 aces, I think. 22 aces.
22 and 25 it was against Lerner. So he had 2 exceptional serving performances, really. We're going to get to Mensik in a second. And I guess just the last thing about Fonseca is that, to still go and sort of like do this, dead rubber was pretty stunning too. I think he just really wanted to end the group unbeaten. He does that. Hopefully it's not going to decrease his chances tomorrow. Of course, the matches will be starting very late in the day. So basically, I think 2 hours and 37 minutes from here is more or less when Fonseca will be starting. What I mean is 21 hours and 30 minutes. I overcomplicated this. Before Fonseca will likely be starting his second semifinal. So that's where we are with Joao. Really, he couldn't have done any better in this group. And his opponent today, of course, Jakub Mensik, I gave him a rating of 2 minuses. So not the absolute maximum negative. And I think again, I wasn't really using the dead rubber as any indicator. However, yes, it's great for him that he had the match point saves. I think it would have been very nice for him mentally to kind of get a win and end on a high note. He still ended on a pretty high note compared to the rest of his event. But what were your feelings about Mensik, who, no one was expecting to go 0-3 in this group?
Yeah, I think that's the only reason why I would agree with the rating. It's unfortunate because he could have won the match against Tien, and he was the better player for at least 2.5 sets, and certainly had the lead in the tiebreak 4-1 and 5-3, and had a match point as well. Of course, nothing he could really do on the match point. Tien just came up with an absolutely awesome inside-out forehand winner, but and then in this match as well, it was some really good stuff from him. Good fight to get it to a 5th. But I think really the match against Feast was probably the most underwhelming part. The fact that Feast just comprehensively beat him, and also the fact that he just didn't seem like in the best place mentally to me. It certainly wasn't the best effort in terms of we saw a lot more errors than I'm used to seeing Mensik play. He's usually a lot more solid. Against Tien, there were certainly a lot of longer exchanges that Tien was really able to get the better of, and then also on the return, Fonseca Mensik didn't really have the best ideas on how to counteract, especially when Tien would hit the serve down the tee, and so I think I maybe expected a little bit more. So he definitely fell a little bit short for me, but I definitely didn't expect 0-3. But of course, with contacts and with the 2 5-setters, I think it's a little bit better than that. But yeah, overall, I don't come away from it. I also don't come away from it taking anything huge. It doesn't really change my opinion about him as a player, even though he's gone 0-3 in this group necessarily. But I definitely had more expectation.
I think that's going to be our takeaway for most of these top 50 stars who failed this event, that this doesn't matter because they've already shown us enough. And this event was not exactly the biggest week of their careers. I think though Mensik, compared to Fils and Shank, which we'll get to later, was the one who didn't really show any lack of motivation at any point. He was there. He wanted to play better, but he just didn't. And as he said, it could have been much better because, against Tien, he's 5-2 up in the 5th set tiebreak. He's serve-botting up until that point. That suddenly ends. And of course, he loses that breaker, but he wins that match. And then, he's live today. So it could have been very different. It wasn't. Still, I have to rate this pretty negatively, which he also agreed with, because he was considered by me maybe even as maybe the main favorite for the title. I was kind of doubtful on how Fils is going to react, but I was thinking Mensik is going to come hungry. And you know what? He came hungry, but he was actually very tight in the first 2 matches. I think he would also, even though Fils was awesome in that match against him, I think he would expect more from himself as well in that one. He wants to be competing at least with Arthur, even when the Frenchman is playing this well. And I think what Elena is saying,
like a guy who put a lot of pressure on himself to do well personally. He seemed to be carrying that weight around when he was playing these tight matches.
I think he only really loosened up today in the dead rubber because nothing, it wasn't that relevant anymore. So he could just go all out and just have this phenomenal battle with Fonseca, which is great. He ends on a pretty high note, but I can't really move my rating because of that. Because for the rest of the event, it wasn't great, but it should at least help him sort of to maybe just get sort of like accustomed to the fact that I went 0-3. It was a fail, but okay, at least I played pretty well my last match. I wasn't as tight anymore. Elena said that Mensik was more solid than Fields, or at least more consistent. I mean, definitely in terms of both his like mental engagement and also his quality was more steady, but that doesn't mean he had the highs of Fields, unfortunately, until today. Because again, that's where he loosened up. That's when we actually saw the talent and what could have been if maybe, just like Van said, he just was putting a little bit too much pressure on himself to perform in that match against Tien, and it really showed when he had the opportunities to win it. Of course, he had to really work so hard to actually get these opportunities, but yeah, he was kind of clueless in that matchup too for a long while, and eventually when he finally got into that position to win, he failed. Before that, of course, we had the aforementioned Fields and Tien with pretty stunning match. Like, we were not expecting that sort of performance from either player, I would say. I think Fields, when he beat Mensik, it seemed like he had turned the corner mentally. And then what do you think happened today? Like, because this wasn't like the Fonseca opener when he was just, he didn't care. He was just slapping his forehand around. He actually wanted it today, right?
Yeah. No, he definitely wanted it. He was definitely more mentally engaged overall than he was in the Fonseca match, for sure. That was just a roller coaster. But this one, I have to give a lot of credit to Tien for the way he was serving. I mean, just like hitting the angles really well, particularly on the ad side. Like, just Peace, was having so much trouble with the backhand return, just getting it back to neutral. And then Tien was just so clever in how he was constructing these points. I thought he played the last tiebreak pretty brilliantly. He found the right balance between offense and defense, and that's when the last two sets you really saw Feast really started to turn it on. And you're like, okay, this match is definitely, this match could be changing. And then all of a sudden we have another situation with Tien like he had in the first match, where he wins the first two sets, and then all of a sudden he's in a big battle, and he's actually not the better player for the next second half of the match. But Feast wasn't able to get it to that point, and I think definitely a bit frustrating because still continues to have the really high highs, and when he's on, like you saw the match that he played against Mensik, it's just like unplayable. He looks like the best player in this tournament, like by far top 10, the most player with like the highest top 10 potential at this point in time. But then you see him play a match like today where he's just it wasn't necessarily that like his motivation was off, but it was just that I think he just gave away too much. And you can't really do that against Tien, who's just so crafty and who's so good defensively and just gets so many balls in like uncomfortable positions. And I think I think Feast just probably needed a little bit more patience, a little bit more. But at the same time, I kind of was like, why are you even playing this tournament? Because there were suddenly, he doesn't really have anything to prove. He's won 2 ATP 500s this year. He's inside the top 20, and he already has like made that big jump. So probably another situation of just Tien playing super well, super crafty, and then Peace, I think not having pushed it to 5 was a little bit disappointing for him. Just the fact that he loses in 4, I certainly wasn't expecting that, especially after yesterday where you said he just his forehand was outstanding. Today the forehand was not firing at all.
I mean, Fields, I think today, in fact, he kind of also wanted it a bit too much, just like Mensik.
Like just like Mensik, right? A lot of pressure on himself.
I think Fields, with the way that the tournament kind of progressed for him, was that in the opening match, he's like, okay, so after the first two sets, why am I playing this event? What am I doing here? And then over the next day, he's just thinking, okay, I mean, I'm here anyway, so I might as well try and win this. Last year, I was the runner-up. I'm the top seed. Like, there's nothing else for me here but the title. He plays an awesome match against Jakub Mensik, like literally doesn't allow him to play. And then against Lerner, I think he just got really frustrated. And that's obviously also something that we have to look at as a positive for Lerner, that he got him so uncomfortable. Yeah, the serving was like deceptively strong from the American all week. Against Mensik, actually, it's also maybe impressive that this was very different serves as well. Against Mensik, it was all these sliders down the tee that he's just setting up for good plus ones. Whereas against Fields, he's just playing out wide on both sides. And Fields has no idea what to do with that, which is obviously also something he should like work on, because, well, a top 20 player looking like this against Lerner Tien, I mean, I don't think at the pro level, at like the top 100 level, 12 games against Lerner Tien on return, I mean, you have to break him at least once. I think at the challenger level, like that never really happens to him as well. he obviously breaks serve so much, just like Basavaredi. The entire second half of this season, they were just breaking serve constantly in the US Challengers, but they were also getting broken. I mean, for Arthur Fields not to do it for 12 games is pretty crazy. And it's definitely a combination of both Lerner serving exceptionally well, but also Fields having one of the weakest performances on return I've seen from a top 20 player. But on the other hand, Fields was really trying. Fields was actually pretty patient for like the, let's say the tiebreak of the third set. The fourth set, he has some loose moments, but then eventually also, he's trying. He keeps going. He is actually sort of very close to getting this back to level. And then you have that slice pass from Lerner, which I have no idea how that even makes it into the court. But that's like almost game over. Fields is on top of the point. Like he can save the second match point too. But one of the shots from Lerner is like pretty short, pretty uncomfortable, and he lets it fly long. Yeah, pretty wild that both Fonseca and Tien have emerged out of this group, which was supposed to be the highlight. The blue group was supposed to be the highlight of the tournament, and I think it definitely was.
Yeah, for sure. And but you said on the return, it was striking to me how much better Fonseca was at like dealing with those returns against Tien than Fils was. Because I thought it was, like you said, pretty poor performance from him on the return, as well as Tien is serving. Like, should not go 12 games like that without getting broken. So, that's definitely part of it too. And also, like Elena says, he smashed a racket. That's certainly not somebody who's just like mailing it in. So you could clearly see, like, especially the latter half of the match, that he really wanted it too much, like you were saying. And, I think... Yeah. And certainly when Leonard Tien hit that slice pass, I was like, this is like, okay, this must be like the nail in the coffin and now, because how do you come back from this? But yeah.
Yeah, and when it comes to Mr.
Because of course he has that really high in the second match, but then, some disappointing moments in the first and third.
Very interesting match on a sort of like a motivational, psychological level for Fields, for sure. And my rating for him was also, just like for Mensik, 2 minuses. Again, it can't be the maximum negative rating because he was just too good against Mensik. But but in the grand scheme of things, this event doesn't really matter for him, right? Like it's not going to change our opinion about him whatsoever.
Yeah. Exactly. I'd give it 2 minuses as well, just because he was so good in that second match.
Yeah. I think that was such an awesome performance. I just thought he turned the corner mentally. And again, I think he did. I don't think that today was the same as against Fonseca. I think he just got really tight when the pressure was on from Lerner. Almost made it back, but not exactly. And then also for Lerner, I just gave him 3 pluses. I mean, there's not much, again, you can really say that would be like, he screwed up there. No. I mean, okay, he kind of got blitzed against Fonseca in the first 2 sets, and that's the sour taste. But considering the expectations we had going into this event, which was basically, grab some experience, play against these guys you haven't faced before, really. Well, I mean, in his case, he actually had played Fields and he had played Fonseca at the junior level. But still, I mean, compete at a level that he's not familiar with yet. I can't say that I can really say that, fault him for anything.
Yeah, I mean, it was a tremendous showing for him to go 2-1 in this kind of a group. And I think it actually helped that he played both those guys before, especially the US Open, the Feast match this year, 4 sets. First 2 sets were pretty close. So I think he was able to take some confidence from that. He didn't seem overwhelmed at all by anything Arthur was throwing at him. Of course, he was also more up and down. But he just sort of weathered the moments better. And I think against Fonseca, at least he did win the third. So that does salvage the 4-0, 4-0 a little bit. But then, I think the first match was certainly the most impressive thing, to win the 3 tiebreaks that he did against Mensik. That forever, I think, set the tone. Anything he sort of did after that was just going to be more of a bonus. And I think he played with the least pressure amongst any of these players. And he emerges second, and he has a pretty good shot even in the semis. So.
Yeah, and it's going to be so fascinating to get more data points as well on him, because, I don't know, last few months of the Challenger circuit in the US, players were actually figuring out how to play him more or less, and he was still beating them. But you could see that they're slowing things down, they're making him inject pace and everything. And it was fascinating because, I mean, now we're seeing guys like Mensik and Fields, and they're just clueless. I'm not saying they should go for the exact same strategy that Bernard Tomic, not in the 39-minute final, but in Las Vegas, was trying to go for, or Aidan McHugh in Champagne. But yeah, it's going to be just very interesting to see how the tour reacts to a game like Learners. I will also say, I think that this format is pretty good for him because with such a quirky game for now, like it might be a little tough to combine a lot of matches into runs maybe at the higher level. And here, I mean, you lose and you're still in the event, right? But I don't know. Of course, we're still like very much learning. At least one pun like this had to be in the episode. We're still very much learning the ropes with Learner, I would say. And yes, and before that, we had the red group finishing as well. The most exciting match, of course, was Basavaredi against Vanash. So let's talk about that. I don't know if you were able to see any of that, and what do you think was the key for Luca to kind of turn it around?
Yeah, I mean, I caught a little bit of it. I think the key was just, like he's been doing all week, just getting a lot of balls back, moving pretty well, forcing Nishesh to come up to hit pretty low percentage sometimes. And I think the backhand continues to be pretty solid. The forehand, when he does have time on it, which he's been able to give himself a little bit more time this week, I feel like, on the forehand. So he's been able to actually set up for it, hit it pretty strong. It's still like not the biggest weapon, but it's not like losing him many of these matches, which I think is the big thing, because like throughout the season, especially at the ATP level, the forehand was getting exposed a ton. But I feel like this week it was actually holding up pretty well. Nishesh, again, he had that like one set point, I think, to go up 2-1 in the and I think if he takes that, then probably he has the moment. I probably would have been picking him in the fourth had he won that third, but just that he didn't.
That was even the second set. He could have been 2-love up, yeah.
Yeah, 2-love up. So I think that would have changed things. Yeah, I think semifinal. I'd be surprised if he gets past the semis, but it's a good effort to get 2 semis in a row with these players.
Yeah, and especially considering he was coming into this event at a very different moment in his career as compared to 2023, and by that I mean a worse moment. Like I was just looking at his performances of this season and like just matches, tournaments, the list of it. I don't think he's played better this year. I think this is literally the best tournament of the season for Luka Vanash.
Since Australian Open, right, where he beat.
Yeah, but Australia, he also kind of had like what? Who did he beat there? He lost to Tsitsipas for sure, and it was just like
Musetti second round, and then Tsitsipas just blew him away in the.
I mean, I'm sorry, but I think this is better than the Australian Open. But I understand that Australia was kind of like the highlight of his season up to this point. And yeah, I think he's been very. I think for both Basavaredi and Vanash, this was a very nice group, because other than the Mikkelsen first serve, like there's no overwhelming weapons in this. They're not going to be like pushed so backwards. Well, okay, Yuncheng Shang, if he was on top of his game and playing pretty smart, yes, his forehand, okay. But yeah, I mean, they just have a lot of freedom in this group, especially Basavaredi, I guess, in this match against Vanash. But as you said, there was that one set point, which of course he got to by virtue of saving multiple himself and saving, deciding points in every game coming up to that tiebreak. But if Basavaredi takes that, he probably wins the match. But after that, just like the physical edge started being a bit too much for him, and Luka was able to prevail. He's kind of did it. I mean, he's done it his own style, definitely, advancing to the semifinals in a bit of a quiet manner, I would say, just like last year. But at the same time, yes, it's by far the best he's played. It's kind of what he needed to regain that consistency, that sort of like relentless focus that he's had last year. But this year was like entirely missing. Best match of the week question here. I think it's down to 3, right? So like Mensik, Tien. Huh?
The dead rubber, maybe, right?
Yeah, either Mensik Tien, Mensik Fonseca, or Fields Tien, I think.
Yeah.
So blue group generally. I don't know if you have anything from the red group that would be a contender.
No, I think those are the only ones, really. Yeah, so either the dead rubber or the Feast.
Or the
Tien and Mensik, yeah.
The Tien and Mensik one, yeah, the 2-5 setters. Yeah. I think Tien feels, other than Arthur's returning, I think that was exceptionally high in quality too today. Yeah. So that's why I'm also like willing to give it a bit of an honorable mention. But Dead Rubber is my choice, I think.
Yeah, I would say Dead Rubber because like 5 tie breaks and they all pretty much lived up to it. So
yeah. It wasn't just like them blasting serves, even of course they were serving very well, but a lot of exceptional shot making too. And by far the biggest surprise maybe for me this week, the fact that the dead rubber was so enjoyable. But yeah, we were just talking about Vanash and I gave him 3+. Again, I don't know where else I would want from a Vanash group campaign here.
Yeah, I think he definitely exceeded expectations. And also, like you said, he went under the radar and kind of no one was expecting him to get out of the group again. So I have to give it 3+.
And then let's talk about Basavaredi as well. It's kind of funny because I think, well, if Lerner lost today, they would have been in the same boat. Whereas, okay, they are just coming into this event and they are supposed to play these guys. And then maybe if an opportunity pops up, sure. And the only reason why we are kind of like a little negative on this Basavaredi run is the way it's transpired and the fact that he had a shot at making the semis. But this outcome before the event, it would have been super acceptable and would have been the same if Lerner lost to Arthur today, except maybe for Lerner it would have been even stronger because he had a 1-0 result in the group, right? And then also he was two sets to love up against Fizz, so let's say he loses from that position. Anyway, that didn't happen, so it's not important. But what I'm trying to say is that before the groups happened, before the round robin stage, I think this outcome would have been very, very good for Basavaredi. As such, with what I watched, I think I only gave him 1+. I don't think I can really give 2+ to a guy who didn't make it, but it was still like kind of exactly what I was hoping for from Basavaredi, considering what I said earlier, that like this group was kind of tailor-made for guys like him and Vanash. But at the same time, of course, we had zero data that would kind of like, make us believe that this is truly going to be the case. We were just operating on speculation, eye test, and everything. So to me, this group confirmed the eye test with Basavaredi, and he played fine. He had a chance if he wins. I agree that if he wins that second set, obviously he's the favorite to make the semis then.
Yeah, I think for me, my expectation coming in was like beat Vanash and lose to the other two, and that would be a good result. I think that's kind of what I was thinking going in. But then you see how Jerry was hurt, and so that makes it it's maybe not as big of a surprise that Basavaredi won today, or I mean won the match against Shank. But then like the fact that he lost in 4 to Mikkelsen, and he could have won all the 4 sets. I kind of was like, okay, but Mikkelsen is a little more experienced. It was still fine effort. But then today to not win one of those, I felt like to not win the second one was a little bit of a letdown. So I think had he won the second set and maybe would have won it.
I mean, he saved 7 break points on the way to the tiebreak, though, right?
Yeah, that's true. So that's why I'm kind of like, it was fine. It was about what we expected. So kind of, you can take away the positives. It wasn't like disappointing, but it wasn't over our expectations either. So somewhere in between.
Yeah, I think he had a lot of freedom to like attack in this group, to show off his skills, the return especially. Everybody had a vulnerable second serve. Also, just generally, we could see that when he has time on the ball and kind of can work the angle, get to the net, doesn't struggle with the timing on the forehand, which happened to him a few times, especially the first set against Shank. Also today, a lot of unforced errors. Then he's really at his strongest. So I don't think one thing I would like to learn about Nishesh is like what happens when someone like Shank or someone like, simply Fonseca, Fizz, Mensik plays him, when like he's constantly on the back foot, he has to scramble for balls, because that was the one part of Nishesh's game that was, I mean, looking in the short glimpses that we had of it, it was looking a little iffy, especially the passing shots against Mikkelsen, which are usually one of his strongest assets as well. And he just couldn't get anything done there. But again, I can't really say that this was a negative showing from Basavaredi. It's a small plus from me, but it's still a plus nonetheless. It's a perfectly acceptable result. And we also have the dead rubber from that group to talk about. However, I don't think we'll be focusing on the match, because it's 4-1, 1-1-all retirement from Jerry Shank. Jerry was already, I was doing the commentary on the match against Nishesh, and he was already contemplating retirement there. He eventually waited with it until the third match. So can we really like rate Yuncheng Shang's event even? How much of a disappointment was it?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe 2 minuses, just because we don't know, the extent of how much the injury was really a factor in the first two matches.
I mean,
Obviously,
it's
today
more
it
of an
didn't really
illness
count.
than an injury.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, exactly. So, but like, yeah, I don't know if it's worth giving him 3 minuses for it, just because. Yeah, it doesn't really just. I think he was kind of the guy that I thought could either go 3-0 or something like this could happen. Like, he's kind of like I was considering both extremes, so I'm not too surprised.
yeah, I think Fonseca and Shang in some preview show, whatever it was, maybe it was on Talking Tennis, maybe it was for something else, but in some preview show I said this, that like Fonseca and Shang are these two guys for me, where they can either go 3-0 or 0-3, and like yeah, it will happen, and we will have no idea of knowing. We will have no way of knowing what exactly is going to be the outcome beforehand. And yeah, I also gave Jerry 2 minuses because I just don't think I can give him the max negative grade. However, yeah, the shot selection was non-existent. So I'm also not like willing to give him a complete pass and just say, I'm undecided, unrated or something like that. No, he played pretty horribly generally, but that's fine.
I'd like him to find a little bit more of a middle ground on the forehand, rather than just trying to slam it every single time.
You know what he did? The first 2 sets against Nishash, you probably missed them because it was like very early for you. But the first 2 sets against Nishash, he was really good there actually, and he was making Nishash play.
Tiebreak that he won, I think the first set he won the tiebreak, right? He was very good in that set. That was when the forehand I felt like was really on point. But that was maybe the only time I really felt like that, because there were other times where, yeah.
The first two sets against Nishash, that was the best tennis I've seen him play this week. Pur l'Andalus, says Stalin, and yeah, that's the guy who could have been let in today if Shang decided to pull out before the match. Jerry decided to take the 37,500 cash prize, and yeah, I mean, I can't really like judge him for that either. I think it's I understand if someone has a different opinion, but $37,500 is also not. I mean, I would take it. I'd happily take it. So. And considering all the other action we got later that day, I'm also kind of like fine with that in terms of the Jeddah spectators. Not that there are many Jeddah spectators. And yeah, that was the campaign for Jerry Shank. Kind of consistent with his recent indoor form too, which maybe makes it a little more understandable. But also, yes, he was sick, so can't really like blame him totally. And Alex Mikkelsen, the leader of this, I mean, the front runner of this group, the winner of this group, I actually gave him just 2 pluses instead of 3, which I don't know. Some people probably would give him more, but I just thought, yeah, this is more like par for the course. He looks especially good, though, in contrast with the other top 50 players, because he's the only one who like brought it from start to finish and really delivered on what he was expected to do.
Yeah, for sure. No, he was really sharp. I think he won all the tiebreaks this week, which definitely shows he had more of a clutch factor. I think the match against Vanash was big. There were 2 tiebreaks that he won there, because Vanash was up 5-1. I think Mikkelsen was up 5-1 in the fourth set tiebreak, and then it was 5-all. But then he had 2 really good forehands to win the match, and that was.
But third set tiebreak 3-6 down, right?
Yeah, and then 3-6 down, and then he wins 5 points in a row. So that was also a good effort. 2 aces to get it back to 5-6, and then. So I felt like he played those moments really well. I mean, had he lost one or both those tiebreaks, I might be talking a little bit differently about him. But the fact that he won all the tiebreaks he played, the fact that he looked like the most, like, he looked like he has this like belief about himself, like he really belongs, and like he expects himself to like win the tournament, and he played like it. So it's not always easy to play like it, but also believe it, and I think he did both. So actually, yeah, for me, it's like. Yeah, 2 is pretty fair, because I think I pretty much expected him to get out of the group and top it, but he's done it pretty convincingly for the most part. So yeah, he's a guy I think who can benefit from a moment, because as much as he had good consistency this year, he never really had that one big like standout moment, like because he didn't get that title. He had the championship point against Garon in Newport, but he never really had like a moment. He had a lot of like semis and quarters and like good consistency. Good effort to be like 41, but if he wins this, then that would be like a nice statement way to like reward his good 2024.
I was recording a show yesterday with Alex Graskin on the first 2 days, and he was saying a lot of the same things that you're saying now. But like Mikkelsen kind of carried himself as the favorite in this group as well in the matches, and also, of course, yeah, about that year, that it was like kind of underrated. I don't know if I agree with that actually, but definitely yes, the consistency was there. He just didn't have that one huge win or result that screams at you, which I guess only a title here would be one, but I'm still impressed with how he's performed so far. When it comes to the serve, Jake, I think that it's like a work in progress. You know, despite the size, it was never like the massive threat that it can be in the future. There's still room to grow there, and it's looking great this week. Probably not as good as the Mensik one in against Tien and against Fonseca, but definitely up there. And it stood out especially in this group because again, this wasn't a lineup of like power hitters generally, or at least, you know, players who can use that power just consistently on every shot. And that first serve of Mikkelsen was making a big difference. In fact, I will kind of say that, okay, yeah, maybe this is harsh on Van Asch because that match was very close, but he kind of won this group when he beat Nishash in the first day, because compared to Shang, who was, of course, the other top 50 player in this, it just seemed like, yes, that really makes Mikkelsen the clear front runner. Now he just has to like wrap it up, and he did. Of course, can't really give him any credit for the dead rubber today because it was just a short retirement. The guys who already had their breakthrough on tour look a little less motivated. They treat these like a paycheck. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I also don't think, Yogi, that you can say that Mensik was treating this like a paycheck at all. We were saying that earlier with Vansh that like he was actually putting a lot of pressure on himself, and that's why he underperformed. And feels he kind of turned the corner mentally. But yes, he had moments of looking very unmotivated. Same with Shang. So I think it's clear that for the guys that were lower in the rankings, because obviously there was that big gap, right? I mean, four top 50 players, and then the rest isn't even top 100. They gained only 400 to 500 points this year. But for them, it's like the biggest week of their careers. Maybe not necessarily for Van Asch, who already played it, but for Tien, Basavaredi, even Fonseca, who is like such a touted prospect. And Gene is asking, what would be the best final? I mean, before today, I thought that would be the Fonseca Fields rematch. Now, I guess Gene is right? Mikkelsen, Fonseca?
Yeah, probably Mikkelsen, Fonseca. I mean, I wouldn't be mad if we got Tien versus Fonseca as well, just to see if there's any kind of the match looks any different from the first one.
But if it doesn't,
yeah, I guess so. I think Fonseca winning it though would be a brilliant story. Just given what we said about Sinner and Alcaraz and 18, and also you feel like it's the season right around the corner. He can actually carry this momentum in a big way. And then and then for Mikkelsen, like you said, for the moment, it would be just absolutely massive for him to just finish the season on this really high, and he seems it's not something. It's not one of the. It's definitely not a semis and finals that's boring. Like it makes you want to tune in and see, because like most of the outcomes seem. I think Mikkelsen and Fonseca could both win this, and Tien definitely has an outside chance. I'd be very surprised if Van Asch won, but yeah.
That is kind of the problem still with Van Asch to me, that the moment he runs into a player who's like really on top of his game, yeah, he might not be able to match that. And Fonseca right now seems to be very much on top of his game. However, I mean, Fonseca has a weaker day, has some of these like younger player inconsistent moments. And then maybe like the chance could open up. And if he's facing Lerner in the final, maybe Alex, I mean, we've just seen them playing a very tight match. I think it's clear that his style of play bothers Alex a little bit. It did in Jeddah 2023. It does in Jeddah 2024. So it's not like it's completely out of, not possible. But certainly, Luca is the guy who kind of right now has a bit of an issue with simply the other players, just being on top of their game. And he doesn't quite have the ceiling that they have. Who's the favorite, Gene? I mean, to me, it's Fonseca, but it just, I understand that this might be like a little crumbly, like, this can just like fall over at any point, because Fonseca has never really played 5 great matches in a row so far in his career.
Yeah, this would be the biggest kind of like, I'm here, I've arrived, I'm the real deal if he wins this. So in that sense, there is decent amount of pressure, especially in the semis. To beat Vanash, you feel like he's the favorite and he should win it. And we'll see
Yeah,
if that
Fonseca beat Mikkelsen in Madrid. Yes.
Yes, I remember that one. The Madrid match.
Before he lost to Cam Nori.
Oh, yeah.
Nori reference.
Yep.
Included. Brandon Nakashima, the 2022 Next Gen Finals champion.
Yep.
Okay, we've got Brandon and Cam. We don't have to mention Lerner. So yeah, basically the semifinals tomorrow. I guess we already kind of started talking about them. Anyway, I was just gonna say that like Fonseca Tien, I would like in a final, but I would be a little afraid that it would be lopsided. But I like the whole story with the Grand Slam final between them and then, right? I mean, just a year ago. That's kind of why I would like it. But yeah, I think for the event right now, it's especially important that Fonseca gets there because of that whole Alcaraz won it at 18, Sinner won it at 18, and Fonseca can win it at 18. And I mean, he's the biggest draw at the moment. He's the star of the players remaining in the field. Sorry, Alex Mikkelsen, but that's just true. Fonseca against Vanash tomorrow. That's going to be the second semi. I don't know where we're starting from it, but let's start from it. I think we already kind of said what we wanted to say. That like if Fonseca is just as good as he's been so far, playing his smartest tennis to date, it's kind of tough to see a way to win for Vanash. But Vanash is the kind of guy who kind of just makes you play well. Like rather not makes you play well, but forces you to play well, forces you to keep executing very well. And Fonseca has a bit of an off day, and then it's open, right?
Yeah, Vanash is definitely the kind of guy who's like going to set a certain level, and he's not really going to go too much down or too much up. So if Fonseca is stable enough, if he keeps serving the way he's been serving, which actually he's been serving really well this week too. It might not show it in the ace count, but he's really he's definitely setting himself up for some really good plus ones. He's getting a few free points in big moments, and so that will certainly help if he is a little bit nervous. But ultimately, I just think he has the biggest baseline game of anybody in left. So he should, if he's just feeling like pretty safe and just like it feels like he can replicate this right now. He's in the zone, and I think I would be surprised. I'll definitely give Vanasha a set, and I think it's possible he might have like set points to win, take it to a fifth, or similar to like the Mickelson match today, where I don't see like this being a complete rollover, but I see Fonseca is just generally in charge of this match.
Yeah. Also a reminder that Joao Fonseca is just 2006 born. So he has 2 more years of eligibility at this event. But it would be good for him to get this done now. And like the version of Joao Fonseca we're watching at this event, he's finishing next year in the top 50 if he can replicate this over the entire season.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, I agree with you on Fonseca Vanash. Mikkelsen Tien, I mean, what's there to say?
A little bit harder to predict. Do you remember any of their matches like previously head to head? I feel like they played a lot in juniors, but I don't think they played in challengers or.
Didn't I? I mean, I posted on Twitter this like matrix, if you may, of head to heads, and there were all the junior matches between the players were also listed there. And I honestly don't remember Mikkelsen and Tien facing there. Of course, they could have played in. I will check because I have it obviously on my Twitter. But anyway, they could have played like before ITFs, right? Like I don't know what sort of like tennis Europe equivalent you have there, but they could have played before that. Yeah,
some kind of sectionals, nationals, SoCal. I feel like their paths would have crossed. They're only a year apart, and for the most part, Tien was the more promising junior just because he was like so ahead of the curve, but then Mikkelsen.
No, sorry, they have one junior match. That is the 2022 Easter Bowl, and Mikkelsen defeated Lerner 6-4, 7-5.
Okay.
But of course, to your question, I do not remember this match. I wasn't watching the 2022 Easter Bowl, which I think is held like March or April, and it's not that big an event. And also, no matches in the head-to-head in the pros, so I wouldn't have watched any of their clashes at the charge level because there just weren't any. So yeah, we don't really have that sort of data. It's still pretty easy to say who the favorite is.
The favorite is still Mikkelsen, but it's not like the Fonseca Vanash match where you just feel like Fonseca's in control. And I feel like this one, they know each other so well. They probably practice a ton, and in a way they're a little bit similar, right? Like they both have sneaky good speaking of good serves, I mean, Mikkelsen has definitely more pop and more pace right now, the way he's been serving all week. But then Tien is very crafty with his spots, and I could easily see him, they're getting into these really long exchanges with just a ton of like slicing, and like it would be really fascinating to watch. Like just the way the points go, the leftiness, is that really going to trouble Mikkelsen? Mikkelsen has a very good backhand. He can keep it really low. I feel like he can go down the line pretty well. So I feel like it's just going to come down to 1 or 2 points in all these sets. I think we'll get a 5-setter between them. I'm feeling a 5-setter, but I'll go slightly Mikkelsen.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty clear who the favorite is still, but Lerner's game is quirky enough that, I kind of want to see this matchup, how it works out first. Alex should be a little better equipped than Mensik or Fields, I guess, to break out of these like back and forth neutral rallies that Lerner has been playing. Because we've seen a lot of these points where, like, for 5 shots, one player is the aggressor, then the other has a chance, then another.
He will make Lerner uncomfortable by making him generate pace from, like,
That's one thing, and I think he can stay in these points like maybe a little better than Mensik or Fields, and also he can just like net rush when he wants to, and it won't be the same kind of like kamikaze like Mensik. But
and you mentioned Tien's really high break percentage. Mikkelsen had something like that last year as well, like on the Challenger Tour. He was just breaking above 30% most of the years. So
this is what I was mentioning when Jake was asking about Mikkelsen's serve earlier, that like he was not a serve-based player getting onto the tour, despite his size. That's still something he's kind of finding right now. So should be quite exciting. Easter ball is Easter ball. It's Easter ball and like the orange ball. But yeah, I mean that's kind of too niche for me. I was following the
Easter
orange
ball that I
ball
ever watched. I actually watched this one on TV. I watched Olafia play against Sebastian Corda, 2017, and Olafia won it 7-5
or orange
Easter, and he won it 7-5 in the 7-5 in the third.
You see, so Easter ball isn't too niche for Vanch because
basically because Lafia and I went to the same school, and so he shared this in like a group chat that I was in, that you can watch this live here, and I'm playing the final, and I want your support, and so I just tuned in for a bit, and it was exciting.
That actually makes sense. I remember I was playing this like League of Legends charity event once for whatever reason, and we also posted this in the group for our class. So I guess it makes sense. Of course, right now probably Alafia doesn't send you links anymore, but now you know how to find most of his matches when he's playing on the Challenger Tour at least.
Yeah.
And do we have anything more to say? I think also maybe one more thing is what's your opinion sort of with the way that this event has transpired regarding the December date? Of course, this is the first time it debuts. And while there are some, like, for Tien, for Bassafaredi, no problem, right? But do you think the ATP will feel like they need to change it when they see how Mensik, not Mensik maybe, but especially Fields and Shang reacted to having to play in the middle of the off-season?
Yeah, it's definitely not good for those players who already had breakout moments this year and who are like just before their preseason, who, maybe are just... they're in their training block and they're like, okay, I'll play this event even though, because of the prestige. But so they're in a little bit of a tough spot. But then for guys who are like the next season is really around the corner, or they don't have much expectations on themselves, it's really good. It's even better than the November one because they have a few more days to kind of wind down a little bit, get ready, come here early, get used to the conditions. You feel like they're more equipped for this date. So I kind of have mixed feelings because in the beginning I was really against it, but then I was like, okay, let's actually see how one edition goes, and then I'll make up my mind. For now, I still like the 2022 spot the best, or I guess 2018 to 2022 when they would put it like the week before the finals. I guess what's good about this one from a fan perspective is that some people are just yearning for live tennis to come back this week, and so they're like, okay, finally we have something that's we can just kind of ease in, and it's not like too much of a commitment right away. So I think there's pros and cons. I don't really have a clear yes or no answer, to be honest. I can see both sides of it. I basically wouldn't mind either date now, whereas before I was like very anti this date.
Yeah, I was actually pretty positive, more than I am right now. I see the issues, and I think for a lot of youngsters, this extended training block is very important too, in order to keep developing their games. And I just think so many of these players would just be happier to end the season on this tournament in November. And then you have free time. And this is something I disagreed with Alex yesterday on, because he was like, yeah, but this comes at the right moment in the off season. You finish the previous one, you have a couple of weeks for that training block, and then you hit this as like a warm up. I don't really agree about that, because I don't know, Fonseca, middle of November, he's still playing Lyon. And how much rest does he actually have between this and then having to start the next season? Probably not much. And I just wonder if some of these youngsters who really came, firing into this event, it's the biggest week of their careers. It's fantastic for them. I love the fact that, the spotlight, as you mentioned, is kind of like bigger on this one because the tennis world is so starved for live action. But I just wonder if it's not going to derail them for next season in a way. Like, I just wonder if let's say the jump that Jakub Mensik made last year from in the off season, like, is it still possible for some of these players now? Seems like Fonseca already has made the jump. We'll see about Tien and Nishash, maybe especially Nishash. But positive for us, maybe not for all the players, is I think also my statement, Elena, and maybe not positive for the ATP, who will kind of just want their biggest stars to be in there and to be there motivated.
If you want the really big stars who haven't won this yet to be really motivated and win it for the first time, then this date is not ideal. Right? Yeah, sure. Because
I think going forward, it should be changed. I don't know if it will be 2025. I think in the 2025 calendar, it's already put in week 51. I have no idea if this is final or not. But my opinion is it's probably not going to stay like this for the next decade or so. I think it might be moved to more like November-ish date again. I just think as a player, like if I was if I was on the tour, I just want to finish off the season and have that huge block where I can do everything I can and basically just set it up as well as I possibly can imagine. With enough rest, with enough training blocks, whereas this just kind of jumps into the middle of it. And I think for most players, it's actually a bit of a drag. It's just that some of these youngsters, they don't feel it because it's such a big occasion for them that they don't care. And that's fine too.
What would you say about like the 3 different dates that we've had so far, like the first 4 editions? Would you prefer it in that spot, like just before the ATP finals, or would you prefer it in the spot we had last year, which was like after Davis Cup? Or would you prefer it this week? Because there's like 3 different times now that they've tried it.
Calendar-wise, probably before the ATP finals.
Yeah.
However, as like a middle ground, I was happy with that November-December date because that also comes when the world is kind of starved for tennis. And
but it's like a week after. It's like the week right after Davis Cup. So
but there's not that much happening besides it, right?
Yeah.
Whereas with the next gen finals being held just before the ATP finals and that also coming up. So I don't know. I think each of the other dates was better than this. Not that I'm not enjoying myself, But yeah, it's obviously, as you guys know, one of my favorite events on the calendar. Nothing has changed in regards to that. However, I will not be on the channel the next 2 days. I don't know if we'll have any content, but I will be quite busy. But I will try to watch as much as possible and keep at least tweeting about it. But at least for in terms of talking tennis, this is the end of next gen finals content from me. Hopefully, someone else will step up while I'm away. But yeah, thank you, Vansh, for this semi-final preview and group stage review. Hope you guys also enjoyed it. Thank you for everybody who showed up in the chat. And well, tomorrow, first up, it's going to be Mikkelsen Tien and then Fonseca Van Asch. Let's get that Fonseca final because I think that's what everybody wants to see right now in terms of the hype, the story, the narrative, and yeah.
And also, selfishly, they're starting at 8 a.m. my time, so this is much better.
Yeah, the semis and the finals will be pretty late in the day for me, which is actually horrible for me because tomorrow I'm, let's say, semi-available from exactly that time, 8 a.m. local time, 8 a.m. your time, of course, 7 p.m. local time, 5 p.m. for me. But, well, you can have it all. What I said to somebody earlier this week is that I'm very active on the first 3 days at least. And these are the ones, after all, where 80% of the matches are played, right? Now it's just free lights. But it's the most important ones. Anyway, I will be trying to keep an eye as much as I can. we'll see how that goes. Anyway, once again, thank you, Vansh. Thank you to everybody in the chat, and we'll see you guys some other content. Of course, keep tuning into all these like match of the year, WTA, ATP sides that John has been releasing. I think we're at like number 3 right now for either tour.
It's like really good timing because I think by the time he releases the number 1 on boats, it'll be like just the day before Christmas or like around, and then United Cup is like 26, so it's perfect timing.
I think that will work out very well. I am on one of the number 1 videos, so you have something to look forward to, as I think it's the best one I've been on. The other 2, I think, have already been released, with me included. Also, a shameless plug. The Iga and Carlos Tennis Show has started its own YouTube channel. Well, for now, it's just one video, but it is a very exciting one. We are kind of like recapping the Alcaraz season with Gil Gross, and by the virtue of like choosing our most memorable Alcaraz matches, and also looking ahead to 2025, asking Gil about his opinion on some like burning Alcaraz topics. So if you want to check that out, I don't know if through the search browser it's going to be easy, like the search browser, search engine. Is it going to be easy for now to find it? Because probably the algorithms don't love us yet. But through our Twitter, either the podcast Twitter or me or Vansh, you definitely can find it. And I think it's worth checking out the conversation there if you prefer YouTube over Spotify or Apple. Yes, Gene, I think, self-promo. The producer isn't around today, so he probably won't even know. And of course, he wouldn't be angry at that. The only thing he's angry at, considering the Iga and Carlos Tennis Show, is that he still hasn't been invited as a guest, which sometimes, he's expressed the initiative a few times, but I kind of have it as a meme now that well, John, you have to show us that you're worth it. Anyway, we'll see you guys, and thank you once again.
Yep, thank you.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.